And we're joined now over the phone by Ambassador Refaat Ansari, the former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Ansari, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you, sir.
Your Excellency, now, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a 3-day tour to the Middle East. The first stop was in Egypt, meeting President Sisi, and later on also holding a joint press conference and a meeting with the Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry. Before we start delving into the details of this meeting, what is the significance of the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State to the Middle East and Egypt as well at this point in time?
I believe to answer your question here are 2 points. Number one, the importance of Egypt in the most important subjects that concerns the United States. Number two, we are going to celebrate 100 years of relationship between Egypt and the United States this year. So both points has a quite valid significance. But mainly, the regional security and strengthening the critical defense partnership is the most important part in the strategic relationship between Egypt and the United States. As a matter of fact, United States cooperate closely with Egypt to de-escalate conflicts in general and to promote sustainable peace in the region. And here comes the role of Egypt vis-a-vis the conflict between the Israelis or Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Whatever unfortunate events that took place right now in the escalation between both sides have to be stopped. And the United States, to be honest, is depending on Egypt 100% on this. United States and Egypt share a commitment to negotiate a two-state solution as the only path to a lasting resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And that's very important. United States really consider Egypt as a valued partner also in counter-terrorism and also regional security operations. Here is the number one importance for Egypt. I believe also, if we are talking about the bilateral part, our trade exceeded $9.1 billion in 2021, and we are expecting that the numbers will reach $10 billion in 2022. We are preparing for the Economical Joint Committee that's taking place in Washington probably by May this year, and that was a preparation for it. There were several other important topics. Number one was Libya, because the United States administration, the American administration, is quite keen to take into consideration the Egyptian interests and the Egyptian point of view vis-a-vis the Libyan elections that's supposed to take place this year in 2023. Also, another important topic is the Sudanese situation right now, and also upon our request was the Renaissance Dam, the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and damages that might cause on the third filling of the lake behind the dam. So those are very important topics, and we hope, as Minister and President Sisi, to be honest, he mentioned that we hope that the visit will not be only to calm down the situation, but to be also a starting point for a negotiation between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority, aiming for a final solution to the conflict.
Mr. Ambassador, now, point by point, the first of which that was discussed was the Palestinian issue. The President reiterated the need to calm and ease the tensions between the Palestinians and Israelis in terms of the escalating tensions that have been taking place quite recently. Now, where does the Biden administration stand regarding the two-state solution? And do you feel that the situation will ease, or will the escalation go further more and further high up on the agenda under the newly appointed again Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, your question has two parts. The first part, when you mentioned, is the Biden administration is committed to the two-state solution? Yes, absolutely, and it had been repeated several times to the Prime Minister, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and to the government. The second part is how this escalation is going to be de-escalated. I believe here that it had been mentioned several times from the American administration, and mainly from Biden and Secretary Blinken, that they are not going to hold the government in general as accountable, but they are going to deal with the government by action. So there was the wrong action by the new minister of Israel when he visited the Al-Aqsa Mosque against all advices from everywhere, including their allies before their enemies. And I believe here that Secretary Blinken is going to go and just to put points on the letters that this cannot continue like that, otherwise the escalation will come out of hand and probably will not be controlled, and this has the seriousness and the risk of escalating the whole region, not just internal matter of Israel and Palestinian authorities.
Well, the Egyptian side and the American administration have both made it clear that they do desire a de-escalation between both sides, but Blinken will be meeting tomorrow and after tomorrow with Prime Minister Netanyahu and also the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. How responsive do you think these two leaders will be in the desires of the American and the Egyptian sides as well?
Let me tell you that the American administration is backed up by the American Jewish agencies and the lobbies in the United States. The Jewish lobbies in the United States are very afraid of the escalation, and it was not their plan at all. Of course, for the head of the Palestinian Authority, Mr. Mahmoud Abbas, he is going to put his demands, we cannot say conditions, but demands to return back to the same situation in the holy cities, and also to return back to the custodian of the Jordanian monarch as a supervisor of those holy sites. That now the escalation is coming from a completely not political point of view, but from a religion, and to be honest, it is a tight religion that has no perspective to the future. Here, I believe that the American administration, they are united in their point of view against the extreme right wing of the Israeli government.
Well, will these sort of tensions and the sort of de-escalation that is being demanded by the Egyptian and the American side as well, will they be affecting the reconstruction work that Egypt has undertaken in the Gaza Strip?
Well, those are two different topics, because the escalation is not between Gaza Strip and Israel, but the escalation is on the West Bank and Israel, and this is the number one step.
Yes, but will it have any sort of effect on it?
Well, the reconstruction plan that we are having in Gaza, I don't think it will be for the time being. If we are talking about the procedures up till now, I don't think it will be affected, but nobody can guarantee what will happen if the escalation will go beyond control.
Yes. Your Excellency, now also, as you've mentioned, the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been under discussion during the talks between the President and the Egyptian Foreign Minister and Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. Now, the President reiterated the need to have a legally binding agreement regarding the filling and operation of the dam. Where do you think this file will lead? I mean, we've been talking about it for over a decade now. Where do you think, how far are we from reaching this legally binding agreement?
Well, we are very near. The Ethiopians are trying to maneuver as far as they could continue in something like that. To be honest, your question, I don't think, not me only, politicians even will not have an accurate answer for that, which means we don't have a schedule, we don't have a plan, and we don't have a process. So pressure from the United States, from the European Union has to be exerted in the Prime Minister and the government of Ethiopia in order to go into a binding, legally binding agreement between Ethiopia and Sudan and Egypt.
Mr. Ambassador, now we're talking about, I mean, you've mentioned the European Union, and Europe on its own is going through its own Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Obviously, the US is part of it as well. Now, where do you feel the US politically will be heading towards the Russian and Ukrainian conflict?
This is a completely different topic.
Yes.
But what I wanted to say, for example, United States is trying always to say that Russian-Ukrainian conflict is not going to affect its strategies. And that's why, for example, they had a huge military drill. It's the biggest ever in the history of Israel with the Israelis. And the military drill was a land, sea, and air airspace drill. And this was a message to Iran, for example. So the Americans, they cannot just, or the Europeans, they cannot just have the, how do you call this, الحجة, يعني, they don't have the reason or the
alibi.
No, not alibi. I mean, they cannot depend upon the reason that Russian-Ukrainian conflict is taking place, so they cannot move in any other files and conflicts. That's not true.
Ambassador Refaat Ansari, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, now turning our attention to tonight's topic regarding the archaeological discoveries recently in Egypt, working to boost the tourism industry. Let's check out this report regarding the recent discoveries, and we'll be right back.